Hey everybody, I'm David with Bolivar Live, and we're going to go off the path a little bit today. We've been talking about TWIA insurance over the last couple weeks, but now we're going to talk about flood insurance.
Okay.
And Dan came up with this idea because usually we don't know what we're talking. Sometimes we talk about fishing or the weather or whatever. You never know what's going to come up, and he never knows what questions
I do not what's going to happen and what we're going to have to
defend.
Dance and defend it.
But let's talk flood insurance.
Okay.
Tell me about flood and what it covers.
What it covers loss from water rising.
Okay, not wind-driven rain.
No.
Okay.
No, water rising. So the river comes up, seas come up, wave action, water coming up.
So the water's under your house, okay, and you've got 5 foot. You can see a watermark.
Yep.
But then a wave comes in at 10 foot because a wave can be double the depth of the water, and it hits your house and knocks the windows out.
Yep.
Is that covered?
Yes, that would be
Okay.
covered. Yeah, that's covered. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is not so much coverage because, you know, when you build on the coast, there are some requirements to build on the coast. You must elevate your structure to a certain standard, and that mitigates losses. It's really hard to insure things below that structure and account for that in a cost, okay? So a few years ago, there was a change in flood zones, and there was also a change in rating. So for 50 years since FEMA came around, they rated kind of the same way. And since 1970, there's been a lot of changes. There's been development, it's changed floodplains, it's changed how water runs off, and also building standard. So what was true back in 1975 or 1980 on houses, say on the coast, which were built maybe on the ground or 3 feet above.
Right.
There was this thing called grandfathering that came in. There was actually coverage for those houses, and it was just a loss waiting to happen.
Right.
And it drove rates. So in the BCNX zones, which are preferred, they used to be called a preferred risk zone. So it's where floods don't naturally occur. It's not in an A zone, which is rising water, or in a velocity flood zone, V zone, which accounts for wave height.
Okay.
Okay. So those properties really didn't used to flood very much. And the losses were delegated to these coastal houses that were like these front row houses, but not 12 or 13 feet in the air. They were 4.
Right.
Okay, and just waiting for a loss. So we've come up to this new standard of building, and they changed the way that they look at those floods. About 60 or 70% of losses a few years ago, before they changed, were coming from these BCNX zones. Like what would happen in Allison many years ago, or Harvey, or Imelda. They were occurring in places that had never experienced flooding, okay, and flooding to 6-10 feet in level.
Right.
So rates changed. The first thing that happened, the preferred risk rates, and many of you that are inland or have houses inland, you may remember you might have had flood insurance that cost you $300 a year. That flood insurance now is $800 a year.
Right.
Okay. Zones that were in V zones, like most of our houses, well, you know what? Along the coast, through Florida, through even in Mississippi and Alabama, these elevations, so the losses that were occurring in those V zones actually accounted for much less loss. So people that had a $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $10,000 flood premium, those premiums were suddenly down around $2,000 or $3,000, $3,500.
Because they raised the houses and they didn't have the loss.
The losses weren't coming from those places. So they also rezoned. So on the peninsula here, which sometimes I call it the Cape, but on the peninsula, there were a lot of A zones. So most of that A zone is now V zone.
Right.
Okay. So those people were experiencing where you might have had a house that's maybe 5 rows back, V zone, that before had a $7,000 flood premium, and on the other side of the ditch, the slough, that was an A zone, and that house may have been $800. Okay. Not really a lot of difference in the location.
It was just 50 feet.
50 feet. So these houses that were V zone, their rate came down. And the A zone houses
went up.
Began going up. Okay? So the houses that experienced the rate decrease, that rate happened all at once.
Right.
Okay.
There were a lot of joys and jumps.
There were a
Jump
lot
for
of things
joys.
that happened right there. The A-zone houses, well, their rate started going up from say $800.
Mm-hmm.
They're on now what's called a glide path. So their rate didn't go to 8 to say 3,000 all at once.
Right. It's going up gradually.
It's going up gradually. So if you're one of those houses that used to be in an A-zone, take a look at your declarations page. And on that page, it'll show a discount.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll also show a full risk premium. That full risk premium is where your rate is going.
Okay.
And you need to be aware, just aware of that.
Aware of it.
And understand it to know.
How many
happening.
years to get to that point?
I think, I'm not going to say exactly, but I think it's about 10.
10 years. Okay. Okay. So, you know, there's been a lot of changes in the insurance, really since Ike even.
Yeah.
That changed. You know, they raised elevation on homes. They actually went in, I think FEMA did it, and paid you to raise your home at
That
one
was
point.
always there.
Was it?
Yeah, that's ICC, increased cost of compliance.
And so there's a lot of options you have, but when I came in, it really, if you had a low house or one on the ground on the beach side, it was more or less gone.
Was.
And even some of the homes that were elevated were gone because of tornadoes or wave action or old pilings. And so, you know.
You mean the pylons that were really good on top of the ground, but underground they were
Yeah, they
rotted?
were rotting. Yeah, the telephone poles that rotted from the inside out. But now's the time, you know, we talk about this, it's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. Well, we saw a win July 8th, you know, and so, and it wasn't, I think it was worse here than I thought it would be.
Me too.
We were isolated for probably 24 hours on the peninsula, 20 hours. Energy did an awesome job getting power back for the damage we did. But there were a lot of new people here that had never experienced anything because we've really grown in the last 3 years. And I heard a lot of, that's the last time I'll stay. I don't care what it is, I'm leaving, you know. And so, and we tried to keep the ones that weren't here connected. But check your policy. It's not something you want to put off. Check it every 6 months or 9 months, or make it an anniversary deal that every year on your birthday you look at your insurance or something to make sure you're covered good.
Yeah, so, you know, I heard a lot this time about, and because there are a lot of new bills down here.
Right.
And, you know, we had this hurricane and there was a little bit of flooding in some of the first row, and it's like, well, gosh, my flood insurance didn't help me. Well, no, it didn't help you in Burrell.
Right.
You know,
but
it didn't.
Just wait.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Yeah.
But you've got to have both of those things because you don't know if, like Ike, you're going to get a Category 2 wind event and a Category 4 flood, or a Category 4 wind and a Category 2 flood, or both, and then what's going to pay.
Right.
And so you have to have both of those things to ensure. And remember, deductibles apply to both dwelling in wind and flood, and both contents in wind and flood.
If people want to get hold of you to talk more about it, what's the best way to get hold of y'all?
Always available by phone call, 409-755-7600, or priestinsuranceagency.com.
Got all the contact. Let me tell you, the staff at Priest Insurance Agency has been there, you could almost say generations.
Well, two of them combined is 30 years.
Yeah,
one of them had a 19th year anniversary 2 days ago, and one of them is, I think, 16 years.
16 years.
In 2 days.
Jamie and Shay. Yeah. They're great people, and they do come down here. Dan's been tied to Bolivar for 35, 40 years, so they know the coast. So give them a holler. Any questions you have, they can help you. Until next time, I'm David with Bolivar Live with Dan Priest with Priest Insurance. Y'all have a great day, great week. Come see us. God bless, and bye-bye.